Good morning, everyone. This is Tony DeGonia, host of the Tony DeGonia Show. We're coming to you straight out of Tampa, Florida today, and we're just glad you could come and visit with us and see what we're going to talk about. So find you a spot with some good signal, grab you a glass of some sweet iced tea, and get ready, because we're going gator hunting.
When everything's broken, and nothing's going right.
Hi, this is Tony DeGonia, host of the Tony DeGonia Show. We are doing our show today from beautiful Tampa, Florida, and it is May the 22nd, 2018. This is episode 16 of the Tony DeGonia Show, and we're going to have some fun today. Well, as much fun as we can have anyway. I had planned on launching this show today at 10:30 a.m. Like I normally do. However, had some technical difficulties in preparation of this show, so we wound up having to re-record and do a few things. Anyway, we've got all the technical difficulties taken care of, and here we are. We're ready to rock and roll. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Today is the second anniversary of the passing of my father, Ralph DeGonia, and it is a bittersweet day for me, because on one hand, I am in the second week of a new position I just started. As some of you may have known, I was previously unemployed, and this show does not pay me, so it is completely free. I actually do this show at my own expense, simply because I love the topics that I get to talk about. I like doing the show, and it's helpful in some ways. And hopefully it's informative for you guys. So I have gotten the opportunity to start a new role, and I've actually been here almost 2 weeks. However, due to some other situations, I was not allowed to make an announcement that I was coming on board here. It was just some strategic things that were going on. So I am fully employed and currently working for Gorderbrook USA. Just a little information. Gorderbrook is a camera and VMS manufacturer based in Bonn, Germany. They've been in business since 1970, which is actually the year before I was born. So 48 years. They make fantastic products so far from everything I've seen. And I've seen a lot of products, and I do like the product that they've got. It has been very successful in Europe. It's been very successful all over the world. However, in the United States, still in a bit of a new introductory mode. So I think once we get there and get to people knowing the Gorderbrook name, the folks here in the United States will like the product set as well. Now, I do have to do this disclaimer. Anything I say on this show is solely my opinion, solely based on my judgment, solely based on my research, and has absolutely nothing to do with Gorderbrook out of Germany or Gorderbrook USA Incorporated. They do not sponsor the show in any way, shape, or form, and should not be held liable in any way, shape, or form for my opinions, commentary, or anything otherwise. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, there are a few things I want to talk about today. I've been doing some research. I'm also a full-time college student. I know, sounds like a busy life, right? It's not as busy as you think, and it's not as fun as you might think either. But there's a couple things I want to talk about. Number one, my dad. I'm going to take a moment of silence for Ralph DeGonia. He passed away just 2 short years ago. I would ask that you give him a salute or a prayer. He was a military veteran, United States Army, Vietnam, 1967 to 1968. He was a aircraft or a chopper crew chief in the Army during Vietnam, and spent 45 years on the job in Dallas, working at Love Field, repairing aircraft engines. He was a great dad, steady as a rock, always had a job, never had a problem. Worked at the same place for 45 years, 4 or 5 different companies, but the same workbench. My dad was the epitome of stability. I'm not going to say we always got along, but I love my dad dearly. So if we could just take a minute and just pause, that would mean a lot to me. Okay, so now to move on with the show. So there's been a lot of stuff going on here recently, all over the country, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about. We have everything from announcements by Google about Chrome security indicators to a article that I read about getting ready for WannaCry 2.0. I've got some information straight out of the Justice Department. And I want to talk about the Santa Fe High School shooting. I know that's not technology related. However, folks, we got to do something about this. And I've got some ideas on how to help deter some of these situations, not just at school districts, but everywhere. Everywhere, there's ways to deter this from happening. So let's start off with Google. And you can find all these articles on my website, TonyDegonia.com. They're on the front page. So starting off, Evolving Chrome Security Indicators, Thursday, May 17th, 2018. Previously, we posted a proposal to mark all HTTP pages as definitively not secure. If you open up the Chrome web browser and you go to just a regular HTTP site, it should say not secure. And then if you open up an HTTPS site, then it will tell you that it is secure. So the idea is to remove secure indicators from HTTPS pages. The usage on the web has taken off as we've evolved Chrome security indicators. Later this year, we'll be taking several more steps along this path. Users should expect that the web is safe by default. Now, I'm going to tell you folks, the web is not safe by default. The web has never been safe by default. And there's really no security warning or label that you can put on any website that's going to make it safe. It can be safer, but as the hacker world evolves, they are daily figuring out new ways to get into websites, to take over websites, to post malicious code on websites without actually having to take over the website, and to do a lot of different things. Now, what I will say is you can pretty well assume that if a website has an HTTPS address, then it's going to be safer than one with just an HTTP address. The Chrome treatment for HTTPS pages, and there's a picture on the site that shows that, when you go to log in, it shows a key and it says secure. In September 2018, they're just going to have a key, and then eventually there won't be anything because Google will just expect you to expect that the web is secure. But the place to look is up in the URL bar at the top of the page, and there should always be some sort of green lock up there indicating that the site is safe. And if you don't have that, or if you have a lock with a line through it, that means that there's something wrong with that website, and it's probably not safe to browse. Previously, HTTP usage was too high to mark all HTTP pages with a strong red warning, but in October 2018, with the release of Chrome 70, we'll start showing the red not secure indicator warning when users enter data on an HTTP page. Chrome 70 treatment for the HTTP pages with user input, and there's an example there. We hope these changes continue to pave the way for a web that's easy to use and safely by default. HTTPS is cheaper and easier than ever before and unlocks powerful capabilities, so don't wait to migrate to HTTPS. Check out our setup guides for getting started, and there's a link to the setup guides. This was posted by Emily Schechter, Product Manager, Chrome Security, and I actually found this article on https://blog.chromium.org, and that link is at the bottom of the page. So I've heard rumors for quite some time that Google was going to make all of their sites, anybody who hosts with them, run an HTTPS site solely, which means that you would get redirects for any HTTP traffic to HTTPS. Now, what I'm going to ask you next is, for you techies out there, you guys don't say anything because I know that you guys already know. What's the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? Well, HTTP runs across a port, and the port number is 80. And essentially, all of that traffic comes across a port 80 as clear text. So if you were to see it come across in a packet, you would actually be able to just read that packet in just regular, normal language. You wouldn't be anything special. But with HTTPS, you have what they call encryption, or in this case, it's AES 256 encryption. And this AES 256-bit encryption is military-grade encryption, and you use it to encrypt the packets that are in transit between your host and the server that the website is hosted on. So in other words, between your computer and the website's computer, you created a secure tunnel. So think of it as a steel pipe that you're sending traffic back and forth through. Maybe there's a steel pipe that's 50 feet long, and you're at one end and your buddy's at the other end, and you guys are talking back and forth through the pipe, and nobody else can hear you or see that you're talking because you're talking through the steel pipe. Just as an example. So nobody can hear you, nobody can see you, nobody knows that you're talking back and forth, you're just doing your thing. And that steel pipe is protecting you from anybody else knowing. So it's a pretty cool concept, right? Well, that's what Google wants for everybody. That's a great idea. There are some exploits, but 256 right now is pretty well uncrackable. For the most part, that's the general thought. By the time a hacker could catch up with AES 256 in order to break the cycle, it would already generate a new set of encryption. So it's not real likely it's going to be broken anytime soon. Not to say that it can't be, because nothing in this world is impossible. However, some things are difficult, more difficult than other things. So feel good that you're pretty safe here. All right, so our next article. Get ready for WannaCry 2.0. So my first question, were you affected by WannaCry 1.0, the original WannaCry? A lot of people were affected, and it didn't really equate to a whole lot. Get ready for WannaCry 2.0. Another widespread worm attack is inevitable, but spreading a different, more lucrative or destructive payload, experts say. They're still out there pinging away for vulnerable server message block services in order to find a way in. 1 year after the historic and massive WannaCry ransomware attack unleashed by nation-state hackers from North Korea, an unknown number of WannaCry infected Windows machines in their zombie state around the globe continue to attack other devices. WannaCry marked the biggest ransomware attack ever. But it wasn't the first widespread worm infection, and experts say it won't be the last. Symantec blocked some 5.4 billion WannaCry attack attempts last year overall. Security experts say another worm-spreading mass attack akin to WannaCry is inevitable. It may not be a ransomware attack, but it is likely to be another SMB-type worm that exploits the fact that so many organizations leave Windows machines unattended and with open ports to the internet, and unpatched for the newest flaws. It's just a matter of time, says Dan Wiley, head of incident response at Checkpoint of the next WannaCry. It will happen again, no question in my mind. A WannaCry 2.0 type attack could be more of a data wiping campaign akin to NotPetya, which posed a ransomware attack, but in reality it was destroying the data if locked down rather than locking it up for ransom. Or it could be a widespread cryptojacking campaign that could more easily net attackers more profit and lower profile, less noticeable attack method than ransomware. Worms tend to wreak havoc quickly and loudly, so it depends on the attacker's intent. If you want to be destructive, a worm is a quick way to spread pain, like the data wiping NotPetya worm did, notes Chris Wissopow, CTO and co-founder of Veracode. He doesn't believe WannaCry was meant to spread as widely as it did because the high visibility led to its demise as a not-so-profitable ransomware attack. If you don't go wormable, you're not going to get noticed for months, Wissopow says. The thing about worms, though, is that they never really die. Security firms and researchers today still see remnants of the epic 2003 SQL Slammer worm attack, and even the mysterious Conficker worm from early 2009. Anytime you have one of these worms out, they are never going to go away, says Craig Williams, Senior Threat Researcher and Global Outreach Manager for Cisco Tower. Keeping the worm alive are older and forgotten machines that don't get the security patch. You're always going to have some number of machines connected to the network that are going to be patched, and they ping packets around for all time. Williams says. WannaCry's abuse of the Eternal Blue exploit basically let the cat out of the bag, and other worms continue to employ it, Williams says. The good news, though, is that WannaCry itself is at least declining in infections. We're confident that it's decreasing, but we don't see it good anyway. We don't see it going away. I apologize. Large organizations, for the most part, have updated their Windows machines and revisited their SMB policies, but smaller and mid-sized companies in healthcare, education, and other industries most likely remain at risk. Checkpoint's incident response team sees 4 to 5 cases of ransomware attacks per week, mostly in the networks of small to mid-sized organizations. It's really simple. Almost every one of the cases we worked, the customer had RDP, or Remote Desktop Protocol, exposed to the internet, he says, leaving the network vulnerable to WannaCry's SMB exploit. Juniper Networks reports seeing 2.3 million devices in the U.S., UAE, Russia, Taiwan, and Japan still leaving their SMB v1 protocol port exposed to the public internet. Mayday. It all began May 12, 2017. WannaCry suddenly spread like wildfire via a Windows SMB flaw Microsoft had patched in March of that year. An NSA hacking exploit called Eternal Blue that abused the flaw was leaked online. The worm was used to automatically and rapidly propagate the ransomware part of the attack, locking victims out of their files in exchange for Bitcoin payments of $300 to $600. In the end, WannaCry infected some 230,000 machines in 150 countries, and by some accounts netted North Korea a relatively measly $140,000 in ransom profit overall. UK hospitals were the first high-profile victims, followed by all types of companies, including car manufacturers like Nissan and Honda, Telefonica in Spain, and aerospace giant Boeing commercial airplanes. The Eternal attack exploited a critical remote code execution. An attacker hacked Microsoft Server Message Block (SMB v1) server systems, which Microsoft patched on March 17, 2017. WannaCry basically exposed poor patching practices as well as weak management of SMB ports. It was also a wake-up call for how narrow the window has become between vulnerability and disclosure and exploitation to attackers in the wild. WannaCry 2.0, the next big worm attack, is not likely to resemble a mass ransomware attack like WannaCry. While WannaCry was a relative financial failure for North Korea, it did wreak havoc and chaos. I think it was a colossal fail, says Cisco's Williams. I'm not sure if test code got out or somebody's science project for a future attack. It was poorly built and it didn't work very well, he says, pointing to WannaCry's gap in tracking ransom payments as well as cracks in the exploit. Ransomware in the wake of WannaCry has become more targeted, while cryptojacking attacks have surged practically overnight. It's more low risk and profitable for attackers, Williams says, and we're absolutely going to continue to see that trend, he says. WannaCry 2.0 could be a stealthy cryptojacking campaign that only mines during off hours when businesses are closed, for example. Larry Cashdollar, senior engineer at Akamai's security response team, says he expects a worm attack to spread cryptojacking malware. That's probably going to be the next phase of attacks. And there are other not yet disclosed vulnerabilities our nation or other nation states know about that could be exploited for them, he says. But nation states could opt for a non-Petya-like worm attack that destroys data altogether in a targeted attack meant to wreak chaos and confusion, experts say. Non-Petya was the type of worm we lose sleep over, Williams says. It was written by a well-funded, organized attacker that absolutely understands everything about compromising machines. The good news, according to Symantec Director of Security Response Kevin Haley, is that the industry in general has better defenses for worms than it did a decade ago. We were in a much better place to block this than we were 10 years ago, Haley says. A patch was available and security vendors had protections. So there's reason for optimism if something similar hits again. Hopefully, while we see more of these worm attacks, we will be better at this and on the defense side, he says. So I got this article from Dark Reading, www.darkreading.com. There's a number of articles there. I think, just to give you my 2 cents, and that's exactly what they are, they're worth about 2 cents. There's no way to stop these guys when they decide they want to do something. The only thing you can really do is make sure you're patched just as soon as those patches can come out. Don't play the game of, I'm going to wait for 6 weeks to see what it does. The patches Microsoft's putting out are getting better and better, and they're there to fix those exploits. So, you can always roll them back if you have an issue. A lot easier than you can roll back ransomware when it gets on your computer. So my opinion is, roll back the fix, so that you're protected, and then roll it back if you need to for functionality's sake. But at least protect yourself as much as possible. Keep your antivirus, anti-malware up to date. Keep everything that you can keep up to date there. Do not expose RDP ports or remote desktop ports to the internet. Set up a VPN on your router or your firewall. And then once someone, creates a VPN session, then they can get to the RDP server. Just safety things like that, right? If you're going to put a computer on the web, a server on the web to host a website on site, put it in the DMZ, put it in the demilitarized zone where if someone hits it, they can only hit that little area of your network and they can't spread anything beyond that because your firewall is protecting you. There's a number of things that you can do to prevent getting infected, none of which are 100% foolproof because that doesn't exist. However, they are best practices in order to keep you as safe as possible. So check it out, do your due diligence and, make that. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Tony Degonia from the Tony Degonia Show. I just wanted to throw a quick reminder out there that we do post our podcasts every Tuesday and Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. You can catch us on a variety of stations, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and many others. So we hope that you'll take the time to sit down or take us on the go and check us out and see just how informative we are. We think we might surprise you. We'll see you then. Hey, this is Tony Degonia with the Tony Degonia Show. Welcome back. Thanks for giving me just a couple of minutes to get my bearings and get a drink. When you get to talking this much, it sure sure gets a mighty thirst going. I don't have a commercial for that yet, or I would probably play a commercial. Although I will say one thing. Not that I'm a huge proponent of McDonald's, but when it comes to sweet tea, they've got just about the most consistent sweet tea across the country there is. I travel all over the place, and so I do stop into McDonald's and get sweet tea a lot. Don't like to eat there much. Just, too much fast food's really bad for you. But they do have pretty good sweet tea. Anyway, this next article is one that I have had to stew on, and I've had to digest for a couple of days, and I've even been able to obtain some audio from some different news sources. So I'm gonna, instead of me telling you the story, I'm gonna let this play and run for you, because what we're talking about here is the Santa Fe shooting from last week, and it just infuriates me. But I think most likely these newscasters can put together something a little better than what I can put together. So we're going to let them talk to you about it for a few minutes and tell you the story, and then I'll come back and definitely have some comments. So we'll see you on the other side.
As schools across America near the end of the academic year,
More shots fired, additional shots fired.
it has happened again. The recognizable dispatch audio.
They're having a shooting at the high school, have an officer down, shooter not in custody.
The familiar images of loved ones clinging to one another.
I've always kind of felt like eventually it was going to happen here too. I wasn't surprised, I was just scared.
This time in the small town of Santa Fe, Texas, located just 30 miles southeast of Houston.
I didn't know what to think. I shouldn't be going through this at my school. Like, this is my daily life. I shouldn't have to feel like that. And I feel scared to even go back.
It was nothing I would ever want another person to have to see. It was horrible.
10 people are dead, 9 students and a teacher's aide. At least 10 others wounded after a gunman opened fire in Santa Fe High School.
The reason I see that this keeps happening, and we can expect it to keep happening, is because our schools are not protected in the way that it should be.
This is the 22nd school shooting this year where someone was killed or injured. The suspect, 17-year-old Demetrius Pagorchis, in jail tonight, charged with capital murder. Another person of interest has also been detained. The students at Santa Fe High School had just started the school day when a fire alarm rang out.
When I first heard the shots, I thought it was just like fire, because like the fire drill went off. I thought it was like the fire popping or something.
Well, I thought maybe it was just like, popping of something, like an explosion or something. So I was like, whatever. But then when I heard the next 4 shots, I was like, no, it's not an explosion. That's, gunshots.
Police say the suspect enters the school's art room and opens fire.
He's actually shooting. He's in the art room. We got shots fired right now, guys.
Freshman Peter Matuza describes the callous actions of the shooter as he hid underneath a table.
I looked up between the legs of a chair and he locked eyes with me.
You made eye contact.
I did make eye contact with him, and he had a face of rage. He was mad. Why, I don't know. He first opened fire with a shotgun in which he shot one of my other friends in the head, and her body fell down not too far away from where I was under the table. That is when he turned like this and opened fire with the revolver.
So he had 2 guns?
He had 2 guns, yes, sir. A sawed-off shotgun and then a revolver. And students were running around screaming. One kid flipped a table up for cover.
Everybody just started running outside, and next thing you know, everybody looks, and you hear boom, 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 and I just ran as fast as I could to the nearest forest so I could hide, and I called my mom.
A call many of those would make in those immediate moments of terror.
As soon as I heard the shots, I called my mom. I told her, Mom, there are gunshots. I heard 4 shots. And it was it was real. It was real this time. It wasn't real last time.
Paige's mom describing how she kept her daughter on the line, trying to keep her calm.
She said, Mom, there's shots. I immediately turned around. I said, I'm coming. I stayed on the phone with her the whole time and just kept talking to her, kept telling her to stay calm, stay quiet until the police finally let her out.
Police and paramedics responding to the scene within minutes.
Officer down.
with the suspect still on the loose.
See his coverage on the outside. We believe he's barricaded inside.
Everybody needs to clear out this way.
Teachers ushering students away from the scene.
Clear out this way.
As students line up outside, police began their search, having them empty their backpacks on the ground. By 9 a.m., the suspect had surrendered, but the danger was not over.
There have been explosive devices found in the high school.
There are two weapons. One was a shotgun, and the other is a .38 revolver. Neither of these weapons were owned or legally possessed by the shooter. It's my information that both of these weapons were obtained by the shooter from his father.
You limited the amount of casualties just based on the type of weapons this young man used, but you still had 10 deaths. It's shocking that we can't create an environment in our schools that are safe.
Authorities say that even more explosives were discovered at the suspect's home.
One was a CO2 device, another was a Molotov cocktail, and there are various other types of explosive devices that have been identified both in a home as well as in a vehicle.
The suspect was a junior at Santa Fe High School who had even been on the honor roll, and authorities say no prior criminal record.
His slate is pretty clean, and so there simply were not the same type of warning signs.
But just last month, he posted this photo of a T-shirt with the slogan, "Born to Kill."
I'm sure there were a ton of warning signs that were missed. Kids this age, they talk online, they talk to other schoolmates. My guess is that information that he was going to commit an act like this is out there.
Today, the governor saying authorities confiscated the suspect's cell phone and computer containing journals.
He's going to talk about doing this, and he's going to talk about planning it, and he's probably also going to talk why he's so mad and why he feels justified in his own mind.
Pagorchis has been charged with capital murder and is being held without bail.
Are you a citizen of the United States?
Because he is a minor, he will not face the death penalty. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who during his 3 years in office has addressed the nation after 3 mass shootings, today promising that this time will be the last.
It's time in Texas that we take action to step up and make sure this tragedy is never repeated ever again in the history of the state of Texas. So, beginning immediately, I'm going to be working with members of the Texas legislature, but also members of our communities across the entire state of Texas to begin to work immediately on swift solutions to prevent tragedies like this from ever happening again.
This has been going on too long in our country. Too many years, too many decades now. We grieve for the terrible loss of life.
This morning, the president responding swiftly.
Everyone must work together at every level of government to keep our children safe. May God heal the injured, and may God comfort the wounded, and may God be with the victims and with the victims' families. Very sad day. Very, very sad.
5 months into 2018, nearly twice as many people have been killed in school this year than have been killed serving in the military. Just last month, some of the students at Santa Fe High School participating in the National School Walkout to end gun violence, marking 17 minutes of silence for those killed in the school shooting in Parkland, Florida. The two schools, more than 1,000 miles apart, now share a tragic bond. This morning, one Parkland student tweeting, "I should be celebrating my last day of high school, but instead, my heart is broken to hear the tragedy at Santa Fe. We cannot let this continue to be the norm. We cannot." And Parkland senior turned activist Emma Gonzalez saying, "Santa Fe High, you didn't deserve this. You deserve peace all of your lives. After supporting us by walking out, we will be there to support you by raising up your voices." Just over 3 months ago, a gunman armed with an AR-15 rifle opened fire inside the freshman building at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, killing 17. The students, determined not to let this happen again, started a movement.
What I wish people would know is that this is something that people cannot get used to. This is something that we can't keep happening.
Never again was their rallying cry.
96 people die every day from guns in our country.
As students like David, along with hundreds of thousands, descended on Washington on March 24th.
It seemed like the crowd of people never ended. I tried with a selfie stick to try and see if I could see where it ended, and I still couldn't.
No more. And yet tonight, in Santa Fe, Texas, reality is setting in.
Please rise and remove your caps.
The Houston Astros holding a moment of silence and flying a Texas flag at half-staff tonight at Minute Maid Park. Community members coming together for a vigil, remembering the 10 lives lost. Among them, an art room teacher's aide and an exchange student from Pakistan. With the senior class set to graduate in 2 weeks, a time marked by celebrations now tainted by a heinous crime as they remember the lives of those taken too soon. For Nightline, I'm Marcus Moore in Santa Fe, Texas.
I want to thank the ABC News channel for providing that content. I would highly recommend that if you're a YouTube subscriber, that you go to their channel and subscribe, as well as subscribing to the Tony DeGonia Show on YouTube as well. Guys, my heart is breaking over this. It's not the first time it's happened in Texas. It's not going to be the last, and I would have to agree that our schools are ill prepared for these things to happen. And so what we have to do is we have to take control as citizens in our own country. We can no longer allow bureaucracy to dictate the safety and security of our children in public schools. While public schools may be fair to middling at educating our children, at best in most cases, they are very poor at keeping our children safe and protected. Police departments do the best that they can. They've got, police officers stationed at every school, one cop in most cases. And while that police officer does the best they can, sometimes it's just not enough. And the reaction time from the police department to give that police officer backup is far too long. What we need is proactive action to deter these things. What we need is the use of technology that will allow us to see this person walking in the door, to foresee the things that are going on. And I don't mean that, there's some psychic stuff going on here, but simply technology placed in the right location can see a lot of stuff. At the TSA, you have almost no civil liberties when it comes to protecting airplanes. Why would we not go to the same trouble to protect our own children as the TSA and the federal government goes to protecting flyers every day? I fly a lot. I feel safer in the airport than I do at my kids' school in most cases. My kids go on lockdown at least once a month for a prank call or a prank threat. It's ridiculous what's happening here. We have got to put a stop to this. I've got some ideas on technology that we can put in place to help stop this. I'm in the security industry. I have access to the tools and the software and the things that need to be deployed in the way they need to be deployed to proactively see these threats coming. On top of that, that gives us, the good guys, the resource officers, the teachers, the staff, the upper hand to deter these kinds of situations when they start to unfold. See, because if we were doing this right, this kid never would have made it into the school with all of that stuff. And I'm not talking about metal detectors, because metal detectors are old school. They're easy to defeat. And honestly, they jam up traffic for kids trying to get into school. But there are other technologies that could have deterred these actions. And I've got a plan. I'm going to put it together. If you want to talk about it and maybe help with it and see what we can do, then let's do that. Go to my website, TonyDegonia.com, hit the contact me page or the contact us page, shoot me a message. Let's talk about this. Our kids should not have to be threatened anymore. There should be ways for us to deter this, for us to stop this in its tracks. And if we can figure it out, then we can send it nationwide. And when it goes nationwide, it's going to slow down these kinds of heinous activities across the country and across the world. And I'm going to tell you now, it's got nothing at all to do with legislation, because legislation for these sorts of things does not work. You cannot ban guns and expect people to not get them and continue to do these things. As a matter of fact, with all these stupid bans and things that all these legislators are talking about, it's actually going to make the situation worse, because you're going to make more no-gun zones, you're going to make more unprotected areas, and those areas are going to be, hot spots for criminal activity, just like this, day in and day out. And I don't want to live in fear. You don't want to live in fear. I don't want my kids to live in fear. Let's work together to stop it. Hit my website, TonyDegonia.com. Contact us. Shoot me a message. Let's talk about this. For now, I bid you adieu, and I'll see you down the road. Well, y'all, looks like the show's over. So check us out on our website, www.TonyDegonia.com. Then click on the Tony Degonia Show button at the top of the page. You can also check us out on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, or Spotify, or any of our social media outlets, which you can find on our website at www.TonyDegonia.com. Hey, thanks for listening in, and we'll see you down the road.